Welcome back. My name is Nicole Bandis, and this is Off the Hook Crochet with Nicole. And today I'm going to be working on a project that, if it works out the way I'm hoping it does, I'm actually going to do a video on it, but I'm in the testing phase right now, so we'll see how it goes. But I also have some things that I want to just, chat about. So bring your crochet, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and join me to cozy up for another amazing chat. Okay, so I am a self-described organization junkie, and if you've watched some of my videos before, you've clearly seen that digitally this applies, but it applies in the real world too. Now, I don't have one of those amazing walls of yarn that's all organized by color and all that kind of thing. My space doesn't really allow for that. It's not conducive to that. But two, I live in a very, very, very dusty place. And if I left all my yarn out like this all the time, there would be a thin coating of dust on everything. So most of what I keep are in bins or some sort of enclosed sort of structure so that it keeps the dust that does accumulate to a bit of a minimum. However, I used to keep my works and projects kind of just out in something that was open because I usually only had one, maybe two works in progress, whips.
Just say it.
We're gonna go with whips. I used to keep all of my whips just kind of open in a container, a basket or something like that. But that's when I was pretty much working on one or two of them at a time. And so it wasn't a big deal because I would touch each one almost every single day. However, as I have started to work on some more complicated projects, I find the need to also have easier projects to work on so that I can sit and watch TV and not have to try and think about what the next row is going to be like and all of that kind of thing. So I figured out that I have time when I work on those complicated projects and time when I just want to veg out and just move my hands and use the hook to do something that's a no-brainer. So I have actually started using these bins for my projects, and then I can just stack these up. And I actually have smaller ones for projects that are a little on the smaller side, but then these are nice and stackable. I can keep my yarn with them. If I want to, I can put a hook in there, but I also put in there, let's see if I can find it. There it is. A little note card that says, if I had printed projects, I certainly would put the printed project in here, but I don't use printed projects. I use digital projects. I keep them on my phone or on my tablet so that I can look at them digitally instead. So I write down what the pattern is and what the hook size I'm using is, so that if I don't happen to keep the hook in there, or if I happen to need to steal the hook for another project, I can look at this and say, oh, that's the hook that I was using for that. And it makes it nice and easy. So I keep that in there with it. And then as much as I can, I keep each of the different yarns that I might be using for this on there. Now, I'm not going to show you what this is because, again, it's a project that if it works out, I'm going to do a big reveal and then kind of talk a little bit more about it. You might be smart enough to figure out what it is. Oh, well, of course you are, but I'm still not going to give you any hooks. Hints and hooks. But these bins have been great because they're super stackable. They keep everything together. They keep everything nice and neat. Like, I know people love project bags, and I think project bags are absolutely adorable, but for me, that's just not a functional way because they don't stack very well. I like things that are, I'm the kind of person that I want all of my Tupperware slash Rubbermaid, whatever you want to call it. I used to be a Tupperware consultant, so sometimes I'm like, it's not Tupperware, it's Rubbermaid. It's Anchor Hocking, it's plasticware. Um, I'm that kind of person that I like all of that stuff to be have edges and sides and not round, because round is a big waste of space. So I like things that I like square pegs that fit into square holes. I don't like round pegs that try and fit into square holes. It's just yeah. Anyway, so I'm gonna work on this today, but I also wanted to share some random thoughts that I've been having, and I want to get back to doing these at least every couple of weeks. I want to do one of these because, like I said in the intro, I just love sitting down and having a conversation while I'm working on something. I find that to be my favorite kind of video to share with you, even if as I watch the analytics, and I pay attention to them, they are definitely by far not the videos that get the most views. I'm going to be okay with that because I promised myself, the whole reason I called this channel Off the Hook Crochet was because I was going to break all the rules and let myself off the hook. And that means that if I have a video that gets, let's be transparent, I'm a small channel right now. I have less than 200 subscribers, and my most popular video has 2,000 views. So we're not talking big numbers here. Most of my videos are under 100 views. And I'm okay with that. But that's also why I need to make sure that I'm creating the kind of content that I enjoy instead of just going out there and going for the numbers, because for me it's about the enjoyment factor, and hopefully I bring some enjoyment to you in that process, so it's a little bit of a win-win. All right, well, this yarn, if you're curious, is Karen Simply Soft, which I read a review, or I watched a review recently on a gal who rated value-based yarns. So like the red hearts and the big twists and the all of those kind of inexpensive yarns. She hates the Karen Simply Soft. I love the Karen Simply Soft. Her two biggest arguments are that it has a tendency to be a little bit shiny. I actually like that. And it's really, for her, very splitty. Now, I don't find that to be a challenge. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if it's because of what I make versus what she makes, but I just don't notice the splittiness. So I actually really like Karen Simply Soft because to me it is one of the softest acrylics that I have found. I also like the Hobby Lobby I Love This yarn, but as I am working on a certain project with that, I noticed that some of the colorways and some of the skeins are not as soft as some of the other ones. So I have sort of shifted my judgment on that, because when I initially tried it, all of the ones that I had tried, which granted was a very small sampling, they were really soft. Not quite as soft as the Karen Simply Soft, but they were very soft. And now that I've experimented with probably 10 or 12 additional colorways, I find that some of them are as soft as I had originally thought, and others, they're just not quite as soft. So I've sort of kind of lowered my expectation, and I've realized now, especially, I want to go into the local place and test it out for myself, because softness is a huge deal breaker for me. If it's a scratchy yarn, you know what? I've heard the argument that, well, it softens up when you wash it. I've heard that. My argument is, if it's scratchy when I'm working on it, I don't care how soft it gets when I wash it, because for me, the pleasure is in working with it, not wearing it or not using it. It's in working with it. And if it's not soft for me to work with, then I don't want to use it. And I'm very fortunate. I'm trying to get these in a situation where I can like manage everything without totally revealing what I'm working on. But if you figure it out, that's okay too. Where am I going to put this? We'll put that right there. It's not going to stay. It's going to fall off, and that's okay. Roll my sleeves up a little. So I don't care if it softens up when I wash it. I want it to be soft when I use it. And so I need to test it. I need to feel it. And Hobby Lobby, I have determined, is one of those yarns now after this sort of go round that I'm going to have to go into the local place, because even within the same colorway, I did notice some variation. Once I picked up about 8 different colors because I wanted to do some granny squares with them, and I wanted to see what they looked like worked up and then decide what colorways I was going to use for that project. So I needed to have those different colors to test out. And then I went back to buy more of the colors that I was actually going to use. And that's when I discovered that even within the colorways, some of them are softer than others. I thought that was quite fascinating, why it is that they would, so the initial thought is, oh, well, these must be different dye lots. They weren't. They were the same dye lots.
Wait, what?
I don't know if just friction made them softer or scratchier. No idea. If you have any idea on that one, let me know in the comments below. I would be really curious to find out, because that was a head scratcher. So yeah, so I'm using the Karen Simply Soft, and this is in the colorway Vintage. It's kind of a cream base with speckles of marigold and mauve and sort of a periwinkle. I think periwinkle is that color of a blue, and then I think there's a green in there too. Kind of a green speckle. Yeah, there's a green speckle in there too. And then I also have a green and a pink in here. So you can see I'm kind of altering and doing stripes on this. Oh, come on, you can tell what this is, right? No, I'm not gonna tell you. If you can guess, put it in the comments below. I'd love to see what your guess is on what I'm doing here. It'll be fun. I don't know that it's gonna look as good as I am envisioning it, which is 90% of the time with my projects. They look much better in my head than they do when I've actually created them. So fortunately, I am in love with the process more so than I have to. So I don't have to be in love with the product. I don't have to be in love with the result because I love the process. Which actually leads me to something that I wanted to talk about and share today. Most of you probably have no idea, but if you Google me, Nicole Bandus is my full name, I wrote a book. I did. This was almost 15 years ago. I wrote this book. It's called Positivity on Purpose, and the subtitle is Intentionally Create More Abundance, Wealth, and Happiness. And this is kind of I call it a bathroom book because the chapters are just long enough that you can digest them in a bathroom break. And it's kind of a, skip around, pick a chapter here and there, and just really dive in and read a little bit about how to be a more positive person. And I wrote this at a time that I think I needed it. The fact that I grew up and lived a good part of my early years with pretty intense depression. I was on Prozac, I was in therapy, I was a mess. And I have, for the most part, overcome a great deal of that depression. Now, do I still get those times where it's like, I'll be literally sitting on the floor of my office slash craft room and I am just paralyzed, knowing exactly what it is that I need to do to pull myself out and just not being able to do that. I still get those days. Fortunately, they are much farther and fewer between, and I've learned some things on how to manage that and how to deal with that, even in those moments where I'm like, I can't do anything to deal with this right now. And in those moments, I've learned that I just need to give myself some space and say, it's okay. You have some time to process this. I'm very fortunate. I don't have to get up to go to work. I don't have a lot of obligations that require me to participate in life at a high level on a very, very consistent basis. So I can give myself the space to just kind of process through those things. And I'm also very fortunate that I know that those times are only going to last me 2 to 3 days at the most, and then I'll be able to get back to where it's like, okay, here's my list of things I know how to do to pull myself the rest of the way out of it. Usually it's just a day, sometimes it's 2, very rarely it's 3 days. But I know that, so I know that even if it goes to 3 days, this is not going to last forever. It's going to go away. And you'll be back, and then it's going to be another several months before it happens again. So in my process of recovery, I do have a bachelor's degree in psychology. So while it's not like a master's degree in clinical this or a doctorate by any means, I have a much deeper level of understanding in psychology and those kind of things than probably the average layperson does. And so I decided that I had an opportunity to share a little bit of wisdom because I'm also while I'm a chronic learner, I'm also a chronic teacher. So I wanted to impart some wisdom that I had learned and picked up over the years with others that I know. So I wrote a book, and I was thinking the other day how it might be interesting to share with you some of the things from this book. Now, if you want to go buy it, it's on Amazon. You are absolutely welcome to purchase it. It's not that expensive, but if you don't want to buy it, just keep tuning into these crochet and chats, and I'll impart some wisdom with you. So the first one that I want to share is this idea: do we always have to be positive? So this is right here. Do we always have to be positive? And I added a quote. It says, "It's so hard when I have to, and so easy when I want to." That's by Annie Gottlieb. there was for a long time this concept that we have to be positive, like fake it till you make it. You have to be positive. You have to be positive all the time. You know, if you don't have a natural smile, put on a smile and pretend to be positive, because if you pretend long enough, you'll become positive. And my argument was that is hogwash. Not so much, especially for those of us that struggle with clinical depression. This is the biggest waste of time if you try to be positive, because there's another quote that I love, and I'm gonna muck it up here, but it's something about if you try and catch a butterfly, it's gonna fly away from you and you'll never be able to catch it. But if you sit down quietly, the butterfly comes and gently sits on your shoulder. And I love this imagery because I think this really truly is capturing what happiness is and how we attain happiness. And along with happiness is that ability to be a positive person. So the very first foundational piece in here is don't try to be positive. Instead, give yourself that space. Like I said, you know, sometimes I can go a day or two or three and be in that negative place. And I've learned for myself that it's okay if I do that. It's absolutely 100% okay for me to be in that place because I know it's going to pass. So start a journal or record those moments where you are in a negative place. And that's all you have to do. Just make a note. Yep, day 1, negative place. And day 2, negative place. No more, no less than that. And what you'll start to discover is how long you stay in that place. And give yourself some time, some energy to feel it. So that you can get to understand your ebbs and flows of emotions a little bit better. A lot of times it's just the awareness that we need to come to that can help us overcome some of those challenges in life. And when we know what it's supposed to look like for us, then we stop worrying and we stop being anxious about it. And when you can stop worrying and being anxious, all of a sudden the emotions and the feelings get lighter and pass more quickly. So start a journal and start recording those things. Now, you know, I know that there are times when I pick up a crochet project that I've been working on and I'm very, very disappointed in how it's coming out, or I finish something and it just doesn't look the way that I had hoped it would look, or like this one, this is one of my early crochet projects, one of my first garments, and I had to modify things. Like if you can, I don't know if you can see them, but I had to make extra panels because it was not big enough. It was not wide enough. But now that it has actually been worn a few times and washed a time or two, it's the drape of it is getting bigger. And so I'm kind of like, the last couple of times I wore it, I'm like, well, I still kind of really like it, but it doesn't hang the same way. And so I'm not going to get as much wear out of it as maybe I had hoped I would, because it's just, you know, it's, and what I'm realizing is I am still having that expectation that my crochet garments look like something that I bought from the store. And guess what? They're not gonna look like something that I went to Target or Walmart or TJ Maxx or Ross. These tend to be the places that I go shopping more so than the, you know, fancy stores. But they're not going to look like those things because they weren't made by a machine. They were made by me, and they were made with love. And every stitch is part of my story. And so I still have a little ways to overcome this, but I can realize and look at things a little bit more now and say, I can love that even though it doesn't look like it come from a store. My mother-in-law shared with me, because I go to Crochet, we have a group where probably about half of us are knitters or crocheters and the other half are knitters. And I think it was last week or the week before, we were talking about how sometimes when the garments that are made are so perfect, nobody ever comments on them because they just assume that they were bought from a store. Whereas when they're a little bit less perfect, then somebody's going to say, "Did you make that? That looks amazing." There is actually a plus side to things not being perfect. If that is that you like to get that attention for your handmade works and stuff like that. So, sometimes it's okay if it's not absolutely store worthy. And honestly, I mean, come on, I've only been crocheting for 2 years. Give myself some slack and let myself off the hook. This was made within my first year of crochet. It's not gonna be perfect. In fact, maybe I will remake this particular top with a different yarn and with more skill now, because I actually kind of do like this style, and just see, the 1 year mark of my ability, or maybe I should say the half year mark, and then my 2.5 year mark. And see how much I have learned and grown and progressed in that amount of time. That might be fun to do. I might do that. But in the meantime, I can really start to notice when those negative thoughts are coming up. And when I notice them, then I get to give myself that permission to say, you're allowed. You are allowed to have this negative thought, and when I can allow myself to have that negative thought, it passes much more quickly. If we get into this cycle of beating ourselves up for having those negative thoughts, they don't go away as fast because you're in that vicious cycle, and the beating yourself up keeps yourself down. So experience the negative thought, let it come to fruition, and it'll pass much more quickly than if you try and press it down and keep it stifled. Let that bad boy out. Just let it go and say, you know what? I've given my negative alter ego a name so that I can talk to her and I can tell her that she has permission to feel those things and to let it go. And I think that helps me. Hopefully it helps you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. If you have other ideas on that, I'd love to hear from you below. What do you do? What are your kind of like coping skills around those things? Yeah, so good stuff. I just, hopefully you enjoy these videos. Listen to my granddaughter.
Please like this video and subscribe to my grandma's channel.
Especially if you do, and give me a thumbs up. Give me a subscribe if you do. Join me in the comments below. I respond to every comment because I'm not that big. So if you comment below, you are guaranteed at this point in time to get a response from me. And let's just chat. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week.